All right, so this is a technique that I had actually done on Photoshop User TV some time ago, and I had a few people writing in wondering where couldn't remember where they saw it. So I thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and redo it because I've changed a couple of ways about how I went producing it. And what it is that famous James Bond open graphic where you're looking down the barrel and you see the person and it's got the blood at the top and everything like that. So we're going to recreate that right here. So let's begin by going into our layers panel, and of course I have to point this out. I am working with a square document at 7x7 at 150. It does need to be square. So whatever these measurements are, make sure they are the same based on the filters we're going to be using in just a moment. So the document's set. Let's go over here and create a new blank layer. And we do want to make sure that our default colors are set to their black and white. I'm going to press the D key on my keyboard just to be certain. And we're going to go into the filter menu and go to render and choose clouds. Now, before you release your mouse from selecting clouds, hold down the option key, and that will make the clouds a little bit more contrasting, as you can see right here. And if you don't necessarily like the distribution, which I don't necessarily do, let's do it again. You can do it over and over because it's going to distribute the clouds differently every time. And we'll do one more. And I think that will work. Okay, so the clouds are created. Let's go under the image menu and we're going to go to adjustments and choose threshold. And here we're going to keep it in the middle at about 125. I think will work pretty good. I think that looks right. And we'll go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to go over here and create a new blank layer above that one. And we're going to jump over into the toolbar and grab our rectangular marquee tool. And I'm just going to go over to the very top of the document and just drag along the entire top, just giving me a little small bar selection going across the top of the document there. And again, make sure we're on that new blank layer, and I'm simply going to fill this with black. I'm going to press Shift Delete, and we'll use black, and there we have it. We'll go ahead and deselect. Now, still on that same layer, we're going to draw a vertical bar on the left side of the document here, just about that thick. I think looks pretty good, and we'll just press Option Delete since black is my foreground color, and we'll go ahead and fill that in. Now, don't deselect the object just yet. What I'm going to do is do a step and a repeat by holding down my Option and the Command key. That would be Alt Control on Windows, and then press the letter T, and that will start the free or the step and repeat. Now I'm going to hold down my Shift key and just drag this over a little ways, just about right there. I think that might look pretty good. And we'll press Enter. Now, still keeping it selected, we're going to hold down the Shift and then Option Command. So Shift Option Command or Shift Alt Control on Windows, and then press the letter T a few more times just to get that bar going across the entire file. I'm going to skip that last one there. And there we have that. So we're looking pretty good. Add a couple more things here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer right in between these two layers. As you can see in the layers panel over here, there's a new blank layer in between. Grab that gradient tool, and using the foreground to transparent gradient, and we're going to use black as our foreground color. I'm just going to come in from the very bottom of the document here and just hold down my Shift key and drag upward. And that will give me a nice gradient that's going from top to bottom there. It might be a little too far. Let's go right about there. So that's looking pretty good. Now I want to do one last thing. This graphic that we created first, I'm going to press Command or Control T on that layer to start the free transform. And let's narrow our document out. I'm going to stretch this document out vertically. I'm going to hold down my Option key, grab this middle top handle, and just push up. And that will distort that vertically, and I can just maneuver this around, looking for any kind of positioning that might work. It's really just a matter of guessing. And we'll put that at around right there, I guess. We can even stretch it out this way if we want. And I think that looks pretty good. So now, I'll position it right about there. Now, I've got a lot of excess area extending beyond the visible area of my document here. So what I need to do is crop that all away. So I'm simply going to do a Command A, or you can go into the Select menu and choose All. You can see it puts a selection around the entire document. And I'm simply going to go into the Image menu and go to Crop. And that will get rid of all the excess area beyond the boundaries of my document. Well, now let's go into the Layers panel and select all three of these layers. I'm going to select one layer, hold down the Shift key, and select the others. And we're going to simply press Command or Control E, and that will merge all those layers together. Now, press Command or Control T once more, and we're going to invoke the free transform. Up here in the very top, we're going to grab this middle handle and just push it down a little bit. So it's giving me a gap of space in here. And that'll make sense while we're doing that in just a moment. So we'll make that gap and press Enter. Now, we're going to go into the Filter menu and go to Distort and choose Polar Coordinates. And you can see, because of that gap in the top, it's now giving me an empty space in the middle, which is exactly what we want. We're going to make sure we have rectangular to polar set and click OK, and there we get our little twirling going on. Or it's wrapping around the center there. Now we need to make it twirl. That's simply a matter of going into the Filter menu, going to Distort again, and this time choose Twirl. I want to give it a lot of a twirl there. We're going to do about 400. It looks pretty good. And we'll click OK, and now you can see it's really taking shape as the famous James Bond graphic. Now we've got a lot of area that's extending beyond out here that we don't necessarily need. So let's press Command or Control T, and let's go ahead and scale this up. And we'll put it right about there, and now it's really starting to look like the James Bond graphic we all know and love. So now we just need to add a couple more elements here. Here I have a graphic of the spy. Let's just drag and drop that into the document here and position that right about here. Looks pretty good. Now, if you don't necessarily like the way the position of the swirl, you can select it, press Command or Control T, and go in here and rotate it. It will rotate around the center, but you can have that stuff in a different position. Put that right about there. Looking pretty cool. Now, what's the one last thing we need to add? I put that right about there, actually. We got to add the blood that's going to be running down from the top here. And that's just simply a matter of, I'm going to do it real quick and dirty. Just grab that lasso tool right here in your toolbar, and I'm just going to loosely draw what looks like a flowing liquid effect. It may take a couple of tries. And we'll just kind of draw that in there, quick and crude. I think that looks good. Let's make sure that we are putting this on a new layer at the very top. And we're going to select this swatch right here. And if you hover over it, it's simply called dark red. How appropriate. And we'll simply fill that selection in. And I'm just going to go and change the blend mode of this layer from normal to multiply. And there we get a cool James Bond effect, all right there from scratch inside Photoshop. Very cool stuff. I'm going to add one last thing here. Let's add a new blank layer here, and let's just put a horizon behind him so it doesn't necessarily look like a figure floating in space here. Put a selection there, and let's make sure we're using a standard gradient. Drop that up there. It looks like he's got a little horizon behind him, and now we're ready for some spy action. There you go. All that created right there inside Photoshop.